Maya Johnson walked into First National Bank on a bright Tuesday morning, her worn sneakers squeaking slightly on the polished marble floor. She was 17 years old, and this was the first time she had ever entered a bank by herself. Her grandmother had always handled money matters, but now things were different. Now Maya had to learn to do things on her own. She wore simple clothes that day. A clean, white t-shirt that she had ironed carefully that morning. Blue jeans with a small patch on the left knee and a light jacket that had belonged to her older brother before he went off to college. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she carried a small backpack over one shoulder. Inside that backpack was something important. A check for $50,000. The bank was busy that morning. People in expensive suits walked past her without a second glance. Women in high heels clicked their way across the floor, carrying designer handbags and talking on phones that cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. She felt small and out of place, like a dandelion growing in a rose garden. Maya looked around, trying to figure out where to go. The bank was beautiful but confusing. There were tall columns and crystal chandeliers and paintings on the walls that probably cost more than her grandmother's house. She spotted a sign that said customer service and walked toward it, her heart beating fast in her chest. Behind the customer service desk sat a woman with blonde hair pulled into a tight bun. Her name tag said Patricia Collins, Senior Account Manager. Patricia was in her early 40s, with sharp blue eyes and thin lips painted a dark red color. She was typing something on a computer when Maya approached, and she did not look up right away. Maya waited patiently. She had been taught to wait her turn and not to interrupt. Her grandmother had raised her with good manners, and she was not about to forget them now. After a full minute, Patricia finally looked up. Her eyes traveled over Maya slowly, starting at her worn sneakers and moving up to her simple clothes, and finally to her face. Something changed in Patricia's expression. It was subtle, but Maya noticed it. A slight tightening of the lips, a coldness in the eyes. "Can I help you?" Patricia asked. Her voice was polite, but there was no warmth in it. "Yes, ma'am," Maya said softly. "I need to open an account and deposit a check." Patricia raised one eyebrow. "An account? How old are you?" "I'm 17, ma'am." "I'll be 18 in 3 months. Then you need a parent or guardian to open an account for you." Patricia turned back to her computer as if the conversation was over. "My grandmother was my guardian," Maya explained. "She passed away 2 weeks ago. I'm trying to handle her affairs. A lawyer told me I need to open my own account to deposit this check." Patricia sighed heavily, as if Maya was wasting her precious time. "Young lady, do you have any idea how much paperwork is involved in opening an account? We cannot simply open accounts for minors who walk in off the street." Maya felt her face grow warm, but she kept her voice calm. The lawyer said, "I have a document called an emancipation order. It means I can handle my own financial matters. I have it right here." She reached into her backpack. Patricia held up her hand. "Wait. Before you pull out whatever papers you think you have, let me ask you something. How much money are we talking about here? Because if this is about depositing some birthday money or a small inheritance, you might be better served at one of those check cashing places down the street." A few people nearby turned to look. Maya felt their eyes on her. She wanted to shrink into the floor. "It's $50,000! Maya said quietly. Patricia laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the sort of laugh that said she did not believe a single word. $50,000. Really? And where exactly would a teenage girl in worn-out sneakers get $50,000? Maya's hands trembled slightly, but she kept them steady. My grandmother left it to me. She saved it her whole life! She worked as a housekeeper for 40 years. A housekeeper! Patricia repeated the words slowly, as if tasting something unpleasant. And she managed to save $50,000. That seems highly unlikely. By now, several other customers were watching the exchange. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed curious, waiting to see what would happen next. I have the check right here, Maya said. She pulled out an envelope from her backpack and removed a cashier's check. It's from the law office that handled her will. It's a real check. Patricia took the check between two fingers, as if touching it might contaminate her. She examined it briefly, then set it down on a desk. This could easily be fake, Patricia declared loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. Do you have any idea how many young people try to pass off fake checks in banks like this? We deal with fraud every single day! Maya felt tears prick at her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Her grandmother had taught her to be strong. It's not fake. You can call the law office. Their number is right there on the check. I don't have time to call law offices for every suspicious person who walks through our doors, Patricia said dismissively. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to leave before I call security. But I haven't done anything wrong, Maya protested. Her voice was still soft, still polite, but there was a tremor in it now. Patricia stood up from her desk. She was taller than Maya by several inches, and she seemed to enjoy looking down at her. Listen here, young lady. I've been working in banking for 20 years. I know a scam when I see one. A young girl like you, dressed like you, coming in here with a story about a dead grandmother and a $50,000 check. Please, I wasn't born yesterday. My grandmother really did die, Maya said, and her voice cracked. She was all I had, and this money is supposed to help me go to college. It's supposed to help me build a life. A woman nearby with gray hair and kind eyes stepped forward. Excuse me. But maybe you should at least verify the check before you accuse this young woman of anything. Patricia turned her cold gaze on the elderly customer. Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but this is a bank matter. We have protocols for dealing with situations like this. Situations like what? The older woman asked. A young girl trying to deposit her inheritance. Patricia's face tightened. Suspicious activity. That's what this is. And I am following proper procedure. She turned back to Maya. I'm going to give you one chance to leave quietly. If you refuse, I will call security and have you escorted out. And I will make sure your name is flagged in our system so you can never open an account at any First National Bank location. Do you understand me? Maya stood frozen. She could not believe this was happening. All she wanted to do was deposit a check. All she wanted to do was honor her grandmother's wishes and use this money for her education. And now she was being threatened with security and being called a criminal? I'm not leaving, Maya said. Her voice was stronger now. Something had shifted inside her. Her grandmother had not raised her to run away from bullies. I have every right to be here. This check is real. And if you won't help me, I want to speak to your manager. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Fine. You want to see a manager? I'll get you a manager. But don't be surprised when he says the exact same thing I'm saying. She picked up her desk phone and dialed the number. Mr. Harrison? Yes, this is Patricia. I have a situation at my desk. A young woman with a suspicious check is refusing to leave. She's demanding to speak to management. She paused, listening. Yes, sir. I'll keep her here. She hung up the phone and smiled at Maya. It was not a friendly smile. Mr. Harrison will be out shortly. He's very busy, so I hope you have a good explanation for wasting his time. Maya said nothing. She simply stood her ground, clutching her backpack straps with both hands and waiting. Around her, the bank continued its busy morning routine. People deposited checks, withdrew cash, applied for loans. Life went on as normal. But for Maya Johnson, standing alone in front of that cold customer service desk, everything was about to change. She did not know it yet. But this moment in the bank was only the beginning. The universe has a way of balancing things out. What Patricia Collins did not realize was that her actions were setting into motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of First National Bank. Karma, as they say, is patient. And on this ordinary Tuesday morning, Karma was watching very closely. Mr. Harrison appeared from the back offices about 5 minutes later. He was a tall man in his 50s with silver hair and a perfectly pressed gray suit. He had the air of someone who was used to being in charge and who did not appreciate having his time wasted. What seems to be the problem here? He asked, looking first at Patricia and then at Maya. Patricia spoke before Maya could say a word. Sir, this young woman came in claiming she wants to deposit a $50,000 check. She says her grandmother passed away and left her the money. But frankly, her story doesn't add up. Look at her. Does she look like someone who should be depositing that kind of money? Mr. Harrison studied Maya with a critical eye. Maya felt like she was being examined under a microscope. She wanted to speak up, to defend herself, but the words seemed stuck in her throat. And you suspect the check is fraudulent? Mr. Harrison, asked Patricia. Absolutely, sir. I've been in banking for 20 years. I know the signs. Mr. Harrison held out his hand. Let me see the check. Maya handed it over, silently. He examined it for a long moment, turning it over, holding it up to the light. It looks legitimate, he said slowly. Patricia's face fell slightly. Sir, with all due respect, forgeries are getting more sophisticated every day. I really think we should be cautious here. Mr. Harrison looked at Maya again. Do you have identification, young lady? Maya nodded and pulled out her state ID card. He examined it, compared the name to the check, and handed both back to her. The names match, he said. Maya Johnson. But sir, Patricia protested, she's clearly not the type of customer we usually service. This could be part of a larger scheme. Maybe she's working with someone. Maybe the check will bounce. I really think we should refuse service and let her take her business elsewhere. Mr. Harrison seemed to consider this. He looked at Maya's worn clothes, her simple backpack, her nervous expression. Then he looked at Patricia, who stood with her arms crossed and a satisfied expression on her face. You may be right, he finally said. It is unusual. Perhaps she would be more comfortable at a smaller bank, one more suited to her needs. Maya felt her heart drop. Even the manager was going to turn her away. Please, she said, finally finding her voice. This money is everything to me. My grandmother worked her whole life to save it. She scrubbed floors and cleaned toilets and washed other people's dishes so that I could go to college. This check is her legacy. It's her dream for me. Please don't take that away! A tear escaped and rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, embarrassed. Patricia rolled her eyes. Oh! Spare us the sob story. Every con artist has a sad tale to tell. Patricia, Mr. Harrison said, his voice carrying a warning tone. Then he sighed and looked at Maya. I'm sorry, young lady, but we have to be careful. Banking is built on trust, and we cannot take unnecessary risks. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Maya stared at him in disbelief. You're not even going to verify the check? You're just going to throw me out because of how I look? That's not what this is about, Mr. Harrison said, but he did not meet her eyes. Yes, it is, Maya said. Her voice was quiet but clear. You looked at me and decided I didn't belong here. You didn't give me a chance. You didn't even try to verify anything. You just assumed the worst. The bank had grown quiet. Other customers were watching openly now. Several had stopped what they were doing to listen. I think you should leave before this gets any more embarrassing for everyone, Patricia said with a smug smile. Maya picked up her check and carefully placed it back in her backpack. She looked at Patricia, then at Mr. Harrison. You will remember this day, she said softly. Both of you will remember how you treated me. Patricia laughed. Is that a threat? Should I call security now? It's not a threat, Maya said. It's just the truth. And with that, she turned and walked out of First National Bank, her head held high, even as tears streamed silently down her face. She did not look back. If she had, she might have noticed an older gentleman in the corner who had been watching the entire exchange with great interest. He had silver hair and wore an expensive suit that made everyone else's clothing look cheap by comparison. He had been sitting in a comfortable chair near the windows, supposedly reading a newspaper. But his attention had been fixed on Maya and Patricia throughout the entire incident. As Maya walked out the front doors, the old gentleman folded his newspaper and stood up. He adjusted his tie and walked calmly toward the customer service desk where Patricia Collins sat, looking quite pleased with herself. Neither Patricia nor Mr. Harrison had any idea who he was. They were about to find out. The older gentleman approached Patricia's desk with a calm, measured stride. His shoes made no sound on the marble floor. He moved like a man who was used to being noticed and respected, but who never had to demand either. Patricia looked up at him and immediately changed her demeanor. Here was a man who clearly had money. She could tell by the quality of his suit, the shine of his watch, the way he carried himself. This was exactly the kind of customer First National Bank wanted. Good morning, sir, she said warmly. How may I help you today? The man did not sit down. He simply stood there, looking at Patricia with an expression she could not quite read. I witnessed what just happened, he said. His voice was calm but carried weight. Patricia's smile faltered slightly. Excuse me! That young woman, the one you just humiliated and turned away. Oh, that. Patricia waved her hand dismissively. Just a typical fraud attempt. We see them all the time. You have to be careful in this business. Fraud attempt. The man raised an eyebrow. Is that what you call it when a grieving teenager tries to deposit her grandmother's life savings? Patricia's cheeks flushed slightly. Sir, with all due respect, you don't understand the situation. That girl clearly did not belong in a bank like this. Her clothes, her demeanor, everything about her screamed suspicion. Her clothes, the man repeated. Her demeanor. Everything about her. Tell me, Miss Collins, if she had walked in here wearing designer labels and carrying a luxury handbag, would you have treated her the same way? Patricia straightened in her chair. I treat all customers according to our bank's security protocols. Do? The man leaned forward slightly, because from what I observed, You treated that young woman like a criminal? From the moment she walked up to your desk, you made assumptions based on her appearance. You humiliated her in front of dozens of customers. You called her a liar and a con artist without bothering to verify a single thing she told you. Mr. Harrison, who had been listening from nearby, stepped forward. Sir, I'm the branch manager. Is there a problem here? The old gentleman turned to face him. Yes, there is quite a problem. Your employee just turned away a legitimate customer and made her cry. That young woman's grandmother worked for 40 years to save that money. Every dollar in that check represents sacrifice and love and hope. And your employee looked at her and saw nothing but suspicion and contempt. Mr. Harrison looked uncomfortable. Sir, we have to be cautious. Fraud is a real concern in our industry. Caution is one thing. Discrimination is another. The man reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. He handed it to Mr. Harrison. The branch manager's face went pale. His hand trembled as he held the card. Sir, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. What is it? Patricia asked, trying to see the card. Mr. Harrison turned to her, his expression a mixture of horror and fear. Patricia, this is William Reynolds. He's the chairman of Reynolds Financial Group. Patricia's confusion was evident. Reynolds Financial Group, the parent company, Mr. Harrison said, his voice barely above a whisper. They own First National Bank. All of it. Mr. Reynolds is essentially our ultimate boss. The color drained from Patricia's face so quickly she looked like she might faint. Her perfectly painted lips parted, but no words came out. William Reynolds looked at her calmly. I come to this branch occasionally to observe operations without being recognized. I find you learn a lot more about a company when people don't know the owner is watching. Mr. Reynolds, Patricia stammered, I can explain. That girl was clearly suspicious. Her story about her grandmother, the check, it all seemed too convenient. Did you call the law office to verify the check? No, but did you check your computer system to see if the check had already been verified by the issuing institution? No, but did you do anything at all to verify her claims before you accused her of fraud in front of a lobby full of customers? Patricia said nothing. There was nothing she could say. William Reynolds turned back to Mr. Harrison. I want that young woman found. I want her treated with respect and dignity. I want her account opened and her check deposited. And I want it done before the end of this business day. Yes, sir. Immediately, sir. Mr. Harrison was practically shaking. As for Miss Collins, Reynolds continued, she and I will be having a longer conversation in my office this afternoon. Patricia opened her mouth to protest, to explain, to defend herself. But one look at William Reynolds' expression told her that nothing she said would make any difference. She had made a terrible mistake, and she was about to learn the full consequences. Meanwhile, Maya Johnson sat on a bench outside the bank, crying. She had tried so hard to be strong. She had tried to stand up for herself. But in the end, they had still thrown her out like she was nothing. She looked at her worn sneakers and wondered if they were right. Maybe she didn't belong in places like that. Maybe she should just accept that people like her would never be treated the same as people who wore expensive suits and carried designer bags. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw a text from her older brother Marcus. How did it go at the bank? She typed back with shaky fingers. They kicked me out, called me a fraud. Her phone rang immediately. Marcus's voice was filled with concern and anger. They did what? Maya, what happened? She told him everything. How Patricia had looked at her with disdain. How she had been called a liar and a con artist. How the manager had asked her to leave without even trying to verify her story. That's discrimination, Marcus said firmly. That's pure and simple discrimination. We're not going to let them get away with this. What can we do? Maya asked. They're a big bank. I'm just a kid. You're not just anything, Marcus said. You're Maya Johnson. You're the granddaughter of the hardest working woman I ever knew. You're going to college. You're going to make something of yourself. And no bank employee with a bad attitude is going to stop you. Maya wiped her eyes. Her brother's words gave her strength, but she still felt defeated. Look, Marcus said. I'm going to make some calls. There are people we can contact. Organizations that deal with this kind of thing. We're going to make sure everyone knows what happened in that bank today. I don't want to cause trouble, Maya said softly. Grandma always said to turn the other cheek. Grandma also said to stand up for what's right, Marcus reminded her. And what happened to you today was wrong, pure and simple. Before Maya could respond, she noticed someone walking toward her. It was a young woman in a bank uniform, hurrying across the parking lot with an anxious expression on her face. Miss Johnson! The young woman called out. Miss Maya Johnson. Maya stood up, confused. Yes. Thank goodness I caught you. My name is Sarah. I'm an assistant manager at the bank. Please, we need you to come back inside. Maya shook her head. No way. They threw me out. They called me a criminal. I know, and I'm so sorry. There's been a terrible mistake. Please, if you'll just come with me, everything is going to be made right. Why should I trust you? Maya asked. Why should I trust anyone from that bank? Sarah looked genuinely distressed. Because if you don't come back, I think a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. And because what happened to you was wrong, and we want to make it right. Maya looked at her phone, where Marcus was still on the line. Marcus, did you hear that? I heard it, her brother said. Something's going on, but be careful, Maya. Don't let them take advantage of you. I won't, she promised. She looked at Sarah. Fine, I'll come back. But I want answers. Real answers. And I want an apology. Sarah nodded eagerly. You'll get both. I promise. Please, just follow me. Maya followed Sarah back toward the bank, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear, anger, and confusion. She had no idea what awaited her inside. She only knew that the day had already taken more turns than she could have imagined. And the most surprising turn was still to come. When Maya walked back into the bank, everything had changed. The atmosphere was completely different from before. Where there had been cold indifference, there was now anxious attention. Employees who had previously ignored her now watched her with wide eyes and nervous expressions. Mr. Harrison was waiting at the entrance. His face was pale, and he looked like a man who had just received very bad news. Miss Johnson, he said, and his voice was much softer than before. Please, allow me to apologize for the terrible way you were treated. It was inexcusable, completely inexcusable. Maya looked at him with suspicion. What changed? An hour ago, you were asking me to leave. An hour ago, I made a terrible mistake. Mr. Harrison said. He seemed genuinely remorseful, though Maya wondered how much of that remorse was sincere and how much was fear of consequences. Please, if you'll follow me, there's someone who would like to speak with you. He led her through the bank, past the customer service area where Patricia Collins was noticeably absent, and into a private meeting room. Inside was William Reynolds, sitting calmly at a conference table. Maya did not know who he was. She only saw an older gentleman with kind eyes and an expensive suit. Miss Johnson, William said, standing as she entered. Please, have a seat. My name is William Reynolds. I'm the chairman of the company that owns this bank. Maya's eyes widened. She sat down slowly, feeling like she had stepped into an alternate reality. I saw what happened to you, William continued. I was in the lobby, watching, and I want you to know that the treatment you received was absolutely unacceptable. It does not represent the values of this institution, and I am deeply sorry. Maya did not know what to say. An hour ago, she had been thrown out like trash. Now, the chairman of the entire company was apologizing to her personally. I also want you to know that there will be consequences for those responsible, William said. Ms. Collins, the woman who treated you so poorly, will be facing disciplinary action. Her behavior was discriminatory and unprofessional, and it will not be tolerated. You're firing her? Maya asked. That decision hasn't been finalized yet, William said carefully, but she will certainly not be working in customer service anymore. What she did to you caused harm, and she needs to understand that actions have consequences. Maya thought about Patricia's cold eyes, her dismissive attitude, her cruel laughter. A part of her wanted the woman to suffer, to feel the same humiliation she had felt. But another part of her remembered her grandmother's words. My grandmother always said that how we treat others says more about us than it does about them, Maya said softly. She said that people who are mean usually have something hurting inside them. William looked at her with surprise and respect. Your grandmother sounds like she was a very wise woman. She was the best person I ever knew, Maya said, and her voice caught. She worked so hard, every single day. And people looked down on her, just like that woman looked down on me. But she never let it make her bitter. She just kept being kind. That's a remarkable quality, William said. And it seems she passed it on to you. He slid a folder across the table. I'd like to make you an offer, Miss Johnson. First, we will open your account today and deposit your check. That goes without saying. But I'd like to offer you something more. Maya opened the folder. Inside were documents she didn't fully understand. Something about scholarships and programs and opportunities. What is this? She asked. Reynolds Financial Group has a program for promising young people, William explained. We provide scholarships for college, mentorship opportunities, and internship positions. Based on what I've seen of you today, your composure, your dignity, your refusal to be bullied, I think you would be an excellent candidate. Maya stared at him. You want to give me a scholarship? Just because of what happened today. Not just because of what happened today, William said, because of how you handled it. You stood your ground when someone with power tried to humiliate you. You demanded to be treated with respect. You didn't yell. You didn't curse. You didn't threaten. You simply stated your truth and held your head high. Those are exactly the qualities we look for in future leaders. Maya felt tears threatening again, but this time they were different tears. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, William said with a gentle smile. The scholarship would cover your full tuition at any university in the country. And if you're interested, we could offer you a summer internship when you're ready. Any university? Maya repeated. I was only planning to go to community college. I didn't think I could afford anything else. Your grandmother left you $50,000, William said. That's a significant amount. Combined with the scholarship, you could go anywhere you want. Harvard, Stanford, anywhere. Maya thought about her grandmother, about all those years of scrubbing and cleaning and saving every penny, about the dreams she had for her granddaughter. And now, because of what had happened today, those dreams were becoming even bigger than either of them had imagined. I'll think about it, Maya said. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds, for everything. Thank you, he said, for reminding me why it's important to treat every person with dignity, no matter how they're dressed or where they come from. He stood and shook her hand. Now, let's get that account opened. 20 minutes later, Maya walked out of First National Bank with a new checking account. Her grandmother's check safely deposited, and a folder full of scholarship information tucked under her arm. The sun seemed brighter than before. The air seemed fresher. Everything seemed possible. She pulled out her phone and called Marcus. You're not going to believe what just happened, she said. As Maya was sharing her incredible news with her brother, Patricia Collins was experiencing a very different afternoon. She had been summoned to a conference room on the top floor of the building, where William Reynolds was waiting with the head of human resources. The meeting was not pleasant. Patricia tried to defend herself. She explained that she was just following protocol, that she was trying to protect the bank from fraud, that she had done nothing wrong. But with every excuse, she only seemed to dig herself deeper. Ms. Collins, the HR director said, we have reviewed security footage from this morning. We have statements from other customers who witnessed the incident. Your behavior was not in line with our company values. I was protecting the bank, Patricia insisted. You were discriminating against a customer based on her appearance, William said firmly. You called her a liar without evidence. You threatened to have her removed by security. You made assumptions based on nothing more than how she was dressed, but she looked suspicious, Patricia said desperately. She looked like a teenager who had just lost her grandmother, William replied. She looked like a young woman trying to navigate an adult world for the first time. She looked like someone who deserved compassion, not contempt. Patricia's face crumbled. For the first time, she seemed to understand the gravity of what she had done. What's going to happen to me? She whispered. You are being terminated from your position, the HR director said. Effective immediately. You will receive your final paycheck and any accrued vacation time. But you are no longer an employee of First National Bank. Patricia opened her mouth to protest, then closed it again. There was nothing left to say. I would also suggest, William added, that you take some time to reflect on how you treat people. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. A little kindness goes a long way. Patricia gathered her things in silence and was escorted from the building. As she walked to her car, she passed the very bench where Maya had sat crying just hours before. She did not notice it. She was too consumed by her own misery. But karma has a way of making sure people notice eventually. Patricia would remember this day for the rest of her life. And slowly, over time, she would begin to understand the lesson she had been taught. Sometimes, the people who seem the least important turn out to be the most significant. Sometimes the people we dismiss and look down upon are the ones who end up changing everything. Maya Johnson had walked into First National Bank as a grieving teenager with a check in her backpack. She walked out as a scholarship recipient with a future brighter than she had ever imagined. Patricia Collins had started her day as a senior account manager with 20 years of experience. She ended it unemployed, standing in a parking lot, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. The universe has a way of balancing things out. Actions have consequences. And on that ordinary Tuesday morning, karma had done its work with remarkable precision. But this was not the end of the story. Not even close. In the weeks that followed, Maya's life began to transform in ways she never could have predicted. News of what had happened at the bank spread quickly. A customer who had witnessed the entire incident had recorded part of it on their phone, and when the video was posted online, it went viral within days. The video showed Patricia dismissing Maya, laughing at her, calling her a fraud. It showed Maya standing her ground with quiet dignity. It showed the tears rolling down her face as she was asked to leave. And it showed the moment when she turned and walked out with her head held high. People were outraged. They shared the video with comments expressing anger at Patricia and support for Maya. They called for boycotts of First National Bank. They demanded accountability. But then something unexpected happened. The story took a turn that nobody anticipated. Someone from William Reynolds' office reached out to the media. They explained what had happened after the video ended. How Mr. Reynolds had witnessed the incident. How he had intervened. How Patricia had been fired and Maya had been offered a scholarship. Suddenly, the story was not just about discrimination and humiliation. It was also about justice and opportunity. It was about a young woman who refused to be beaten down by cruelty, and a powerful man who recognized her worth. Maya became something of a local celebrity. Newspapers and television stations wanted to interview her. Community organizations wanted to honor her. Universities that had never heard of her before were suddenly offering her admission. But Maya, true to her grandmother's teachings, remained humble throughout it all. "This isn't about me," she said in one interview. "This is about all the people who get treated badly because of how they look or where they come from. I just happen to be in the right place at the right time, with the right person watching. But there are so many others who don't get that lucky." Her words touched people even more than the original video had. Here was a young woman who had every reason to be bitter and resentful, and instead she was using her platform to speak up for others. Marcus came home from college to support his sister through all the attention. He helped screen interview requests, handled media inquiries, and made sure Maya stayed focused on what mattered most: preparing for her future. "Grandma would be so proud of you," he told her one evening as they sat on the porch of their small house. "You handled everything exactly the way she would have wanted." "I miss her," Maya said softly. "I wish she could see all of this." "Maybe she can," Marcus said. "Maybe she's watching from somewhere. Maybe this was all part of her plan." Maya smiled at the thought. Her grandmother had always believed in the power of hard work, perseverance, and faith. Maybe. Somehow, she had set all of this in motion. As the weeks passed, Maya began the process of applying to colleges. With a scholarship from Reynolds Financial Group, she could afford to aim high. She applied to some of the best universities in the country, including schools she had only dreamed about before. And then, the acceptance letters started arriving. Harvard said yes. Stanford said yes. Yale said yes. Every single school she applied to wanted her. Maya sat in her kitchen, surrounded by acceptance letters, tears streaming down her face. Her grandmother's check had been for $50,000. Her grandmother's legacy was worth so much more. She chose Stanford. It had been her grandmother's dream for her to go to California, to see the ocean, to experience something beyond the small town where they had always lived. Maya was going to make that dream come true. Before she left for college, there was one more thing she needed to do. She went back to First National Bank. The atmosphere was completely different now. Employees smiled at her warmly as she entered. The new customer service representative, a young man named David, greeted her by name. "Miss Johnson, it's so nice to see you. How can we help you today?" "I'd like to make a donation," Maya said. "I want to set up a fund in my grandmother's name. A fund to help young people who can't afford college." David's eyes widened. That's incredibly generous. "Let me get Mr. Harrison for you." Mr. Harrison came out personally to meet with Maya. His attitude toward her had changed completely since that first terrible day. He was respectful, almost reverent, in the way he treated her. "A scholarship fund," he repeated. "In your grandmother's name. That's a beautiful idea." "Miss Johnson, my grandmother worked hard her whole life so that I could have opportunities," Maya said. "I want to pay that forward. I want other young people to have the same chance." She deposited $5,000 from her grandmother's inheritance into the new fund. It was a significant portion of her money, but it felt right. Her grandmother would have wanted her to help others. "The Ella Johnson Scholarship Fund," Maya said. "That's what I want to call it." Mr. Harrison nodded. "It's done. And I want you to know, Miss Johnson, that the bank will be matching your donation. We want to support this cause." Maya was surprised. "You don't have to do that." "We want to," Mr. Harrison said. "What happened to you in this bank was wrong. We can't change the past, but we can help shape the future. This fund is a way for us to do that." Maya shook his hand. "Thank you. My grandmother would appreciate this." "I never met your grandmother," Mr. Harrison said, "but based on the granddaughter she raised, she must have been an extraordinary woman." Maya left the bank that day with a full heart. The money in her account was important, but the fund she had created was even more important. Her grandmother's legacy would live on, helping young people for years to come. As she walked out into the sunshine, she thought about everything that had happened since that terrible Tuesday morning. She had been humiliated, rejected, and made to feel worthless. But she had not let it break her. She had stood her ground, told her truth, and refused to give up. And in the end, everything had worked out better than she ever could have imagined. Sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures. Sometimes the people who try to push us down end up lifting us higher than we ever dreamed possible. And sometimes, when we least expect it, karma shows up exactly when it's needed. Maya Johnson was going to Stanford. She had a scholarship fund in her grandmother's name, and a future full of possibilities. The bank employee who had tried to humiliate her had lost her job, her reputation, and perhaps, eventually, the bitterness that had made her treat others so badly. The universe had balanced itself, just as it always does. Maya's journey to Stanford was filled with emotions. Marcus drove her cross-country and they spent the long hours in the car talking about their grandmother, their childhood, and all the hopes they had for the future. When they finally arrived at the campus, Maya stood at the entrance gates and cried. "I wish she was here," she said. "She is here," Marcus replied, putting his arm around her. "She's in every step you take. She's in every word you speak. She's in the person you've become. Maya nodded, wiped her eyes, and walked onto the campus that would be her home for the next 4 years. College life was challenging but wonderful. Maya studied hard, made friends, and discovered talents she never knew she had. She majored in business, inspired by her experience with William Reynolds and the possibilities that opened up when people were given a chance. She also started volunteering with organizations that helped underprivileged youth. She spoke at schools and community centers, sharing her story and encouraging others to never give up, no matter how badly they were treated. People will judge you by how you look, she would tell them. They'll make assumptions about you before you even open your mouth. But that says something about them, not about you. Your worth is not determined by their opinions. Your future is not limited by their prejudices. You are more than what they see. Her words inspired countless young people who faced similar struggles. They saw in Maya a reflection of themselves. Someone who had been dismissed and humiliated but who had risen above it all. If she could do it, maybe they could too. During her junior year at Stanford, Maya received an unexpected email. It was from Patricia Collins. Maya stared at the sender's name for a long time before opening the message. She had not thought about Patricia in months. The anger she once felt had faded, replaced by something closer to pity. What kind of person treats others the way Patricia had treated her? What kind of pain must she be carrying inside? The email was surprisingly long. Patricia wrote about how losing her job had been a wake-up call. She wrote about how she had been forced to examine her behavior and her attitudes. She wrote about the therapy she had started, the biases she had discovered within herself, and the long journey toward becoming a better person. And she apologized. "I cannot undo what I did to you," Patricia wrote. "I cannot take back the words I said or the way I made you feel. But I want you to know that I am truly, deeply sorry. You did nothing wrong that day. I was the one who was wrong. I let my prejudices blind me to the person standing in front of me. I saw your clothes instead of your character. I saw your circumstances instead of your humanity. And I am deeply ashamed." She went on to explain that she had started volunteering at a community center, helping people who reminded her of Maya. She was trying to give back, to make amends in whatever small way she could. "I know, I don't deserve your forgiveness," Patricia concluded. "But I wanted you to know that your dignity in the face of my cruelty taught me something important. You showed me what it means to be strong, not through aggression, but through grace. Thank you for that lesson. I only wish I hadn't had to learn it at your expense." Maya read the email 3 times. Then she sat in her dorm room and thought about her grandmother. Ella Johnson had been a forgiving woman. She had been treated poorly by many people over the years. Employers who cheated her, neighbors who looked down on her, strangers who dismissed her because of her job or her race or her circumstances. But she had never let the bitterness take root in her heart. Carrying hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She used to say, "Let it go, baby, let it go and be free." Maya took a deep breath and began to type a reply. "Dear Patricia," she wrote, "I received your email, and I want you to know that I forgive you. What happened that day was painful, and I won't pretend it wasn't. But I also believe that people can change. The fact that you reached out, that you acknowledged what you did, that you're trying to be better, that matters. I hope you continue on this path. I hope you find peace, and I hope that someday you can forgive yourself too." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Forgiveness, Maya realized, was not about excusing what had been done. It was about freeing herself from the weight of anger. It was about choosing peace over resentment. It was about becoming the person her grandmother had raised her to be. Years passed. Maya graduated from Stanford with honors. She went on to get her MBA and began a career in financial services, eventually joining Reynolds Financial Group as a young executive. William Reynolds had become something of a mentor to her over the years. He had followed her progress, offered advice, and celebrated her achievements. When she joined his company, he was one of the first to welcome her. "I knew you were special from the moment I saw you standing up to that woman in the bank," he told her. "You had a fire in you, but also a grace. That's a rare combination." Maya rose through the ranks quickly. She was smart, hardworking, and had a gift for connecting with people. She never forgot where she came from or the struggles she had faced. And she used her position to create opportunities for others. The Ella Johnson Scholarship Fund, which she had started with $5,000, had grown significantly over the years. Through her fundraising efforts and the contributions of others who had been inspired by her story, it now provided full scholarships to dozens of students every year. At 30 years old, Maya was appointed as a vice president at Reynolds Financial Group. At 30, she was named a partner. And at 40, when William Reynolds retired, she was chosen to succeed him as the new CEO. The girl who had walked into a bank and worn sneakers was now running one of the largest financial companies in the country. On the day of her appointment as CEO, Maya gave a speech to the company's employees. She stood at a podium in the same building where she had once been humiliated, and she shared her story. 23 years ago, she said, I walked into a bank to deposit a check. I was 17 years old. I was grieving my grandmother's death, and I was wearing the only clothes I had. An employee looked at me and decided I didn't belong. She called me a fraud. She tried to have me thrown out. The room was silent. Many employees knew the story, but hearing it from Maya herself was different. That experience could have broken me, she continued. It could have made me bitter and angry and convinced that the world was against me. But instead, it taught me something important. It taught me that how we treat people matters. It taught me that every person who walks through our doors deserves respect, regardless of how they're dressed or where they come from. She looked out at the hundreds of faces watching her. That is going to be the foundation of everything we do under my leadership. We are going to be a company that sees people, really sees them. Not as numbers or demographics, but as human beings with dreams and struggles and potential. We are going to be a company that my grandmother would have been proud of. There was applause, long and genuine. But Maya was not finished. I also want to say something about the woman who treated me so badly that day. Many of you know that she lost her job. What you may not know is that she reached out to me years later to apologize. She had changed. She had grown. She had become a better person. The room was quiet again, listening intently. I forgave her, Maya said. Not because what she did was okay, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting her. And because I believe in second chances, I believe that people can change. I believe that the worst moment of someone's life does not have to define them forever. She smiled. Patricia Collins now works at a nonprofit that helps people who face discrimination in financial services. She has dedicated her life to making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to others. And while she can never undo the past, she's making a difference in the future. There were murmurs of surprise throughout the audience. This was not the ending they had expected. So here's what I want you to take away from my story. Maya concluded. Be kind. Treat everyone with dignity. Remember that the person in front of you has a story you don't know, struggles you can't see, dreams that are just as valid as your own. And if you mess up, if you hurt someone, if you let your prejudices get the better of you, own it. Apologize. Make amends. Change. She took a deep breath. My grandmother cleaned houses for 40 years. She scrubbed toilets and washed dishes and never complained. She saved every penny so that I could have a better life. Today, I am standing here as the CEO of a company she could never have dreamed of entering. And I am standing here because she taught me that our worth is not determined by our circumstances, but by our character. Maya paused, feeling the weight of the moment. Thank you, Grandma. I hope I made you proud. The applause that followed was thunderous. Employees were wiping tears from their eyes. And somewhere, perhaps, a grandmother who had spent her life scrubbing floors was smiling down at the granddaughter, who had risen higher than either of them had ever imagined. Karma is patient. It does not always act quickly or obviously, but in the end, it balances things out. Those who spread cruelty often find it returning to them. Those who show grace and dignity often find opportunities opening before them. Maya Johnson had faced humiliation with grace. She had faced injustice with dignity. And she had faced hatred with love. In return, the universe had given her everything she could have asked for and more. The bank employee who had tried to humiliate a black girl had learned the meaning of karma, and the girl she had tried to break had become unbreakable. This was not just Maya's story. It was a reminder that we all have the power to choose how we respond to the cruelty of others. We can let it make us bitter, or we can let it make us better. We can let it push us down, or we can let it lift us up. Maya chose to rise, and in rising, she lifted countless others with her.